PvP, this is something that is very tricky. One thing is when you're playing against another player, or you're a DM who's like playing a character against a player, it's very difficult because your mindset, mindsets for encounters, at least how I face it from the DM, are not always optimized. Like, they are in some sense, like the enemies do what they're supposed to, or you try to give players a chance to shine, and or you're basing off a certain terrain and you want them to play a certain strategy, which may or may not work out well against the players. Like, and you're focusing on so many things at once that they can't all be, incredibly potent at what they're doing, which is a good thing for balancing reasons. Now, the issue with PvP is you don't get that mentality, because it's not like, as a DM, I will often try to avoid like stun effects or effects that basically remove players' turns, because there's other ways to detriment the players with it being fun, like blinding them. They may have to find new ways to fight, and there's other ways to debilitate them that can lead to more creative stuff on the player's side than just removing their turn. That isn't a concern in PvP because you're only looking out for yourself. You're not gonna make sure the other players are having a good time. In fact, the opposite. So that's a big issue. Now, I'm not saying PvP can't be fun. So I would say one thing is, as a DM, I would be very careful if I use player character enemies, because they're often less fun for this reason. There are ways to mitigate that and control what they're doing, and if you treat them like another monster, then it will go better. But you'll want to be very careful. Now, in Zbashu made a video on PvP, and that it's not all about combat, right? There's like intrigue, and there's strategies to use to kind of the outside in terms of RP perspectives to get to the top, besides just being optimized. And that's another thing, because not like you're in a party which has support, it has tanks, it has DPR. So it's like, it's not meant for scenarios like that. And I don't think you don't want to encourage your party to build like that either. So you could, like, the one big thing I see is PvP one shots, and I say this is one better way to do it, because like, if it doesn't go wrong, it's just one session and then it's over. It's when you do PvP in like a sort of inside a campaign for whatever reason, then it starts to get better. And then how do you repair that? One time I ran an arena battle that was PvP, and it did not go well, because whoever lost, they felt really bad, like out of character and in character, and just made the other players feel bad. And it's like, you don't want to see your friends beating you up, and it doesn't it's difficult. One way to mitigate this is there's other ways to have the players compete against each other. Now, one thing I tried is, like, it's a matter of hits. This is kind of fun, like with like a wizard battle, because you try to figure out what spells like do the most damage the most times, which is a bit like more fun, but it still has a similar problem, because you're trying to like be the most OP, and then like when you just get bad luck, it just sucks. So I would take that with a grain of salt, but it's one of the better options to do. Like, and you want to have it in a more low stakes environment, like a spar, which doesn't come off in that much unless it's like player initiated, which is the best way. I would say, as a DM, I would just mostly avoid doing that sort of thing. When it comes to possession, this is very interesting, because it's something that you as a player aren't alerted to, right? So you're in a place where you're not sure what you want to do. Like, some players will go more all out, but like these are your friends that you're hurting, and you have to act contradictory yourself. You're sort of mirroring the conflict that that character themselves has, which I think is one of the better ways to do it, because in that sense you're getting more interesting options, like you might end up grappling instead of attacking, or you're doing things that can debilitate them, but just in different ways, trying to figure out how to hurt them but not hurt them. And that's one of my more favorite versions of PvP. And I say, if you want to do something like that, I would say it's probably the best option. Or like if you want to use player characters against each other, you can do like mirror versions, which is like have the player stats but they're controlled by you. So you get to kind of mitigate it so it's not OP, things like that. You can also mess around. I would say one option to give players a chance to be antagonistic against each other, as I mentioned this before, is the Monster Wrangler option, which I think was first kind of brought up by Matthew Colville in his video, which is very good. Essentially what it is you give players control of enemies. I really like this because, especially in cases where a player is downed or you have to split the party or whatever reason, that player doesn't get to do that much in the fight, you can have them control enemies. And this is fun because, like, maybe you'll see a player that has potential to be a DM, and you can sort of like encourage them to sort of get more used to that by bringing this on, or just to give them a chance to do something new if they're kind of tired of like always playing support or whatnot. And I honestly, as a player, having done this, I really like it, and then I really like doing it as a DM too, because it makes things easier for me. Obviously, it's fun to see what they would do with the enemies that I wouldn't. I really like using the Monster Wrangler. It's a very like easy trick that I just really like. Again, if you want to do more like the sparring stuff, or like stuff where players would compete against each other, but you don't want it to be direct PvP, you could have like, there's a ton of fun minigame sports rules, or like I think there's like a Wizard's Duel in Strixhaven. There's like I think like a lightning ball or something in Icewind. There's a ton of like these interesting other ways to show skill without it, and I've always loved doing that. Like, minigames are very underrated. One time I ran this tennis minigame where it was a blast, because essentially what happened was that each time it was a serve, which was like, I think you could either do like an athletics or acrobatics or like attack roll or something, but the DC was based off of how hard you want to make it hit. So you could like do a basic serve, which is like a DC 10, so that's going to be easy to hit, but it's a DC 10 for the enemy to hit back. So it's like, okay, it's easy for you to hit, but it's going to be easy for them to respond to. You can do a harder serve, which is like a DC 15, so it's hard to pull off, but it's going to make it harder for the enemy to hit. And then you can do like a DC 20, which is really hard to pull off. So you get to kind of hedge your bets and have some fun sort of with risk and reward stuff. I found that most mini games players often enjoy, because it's just a chance to kind of break away from some of the usual stuff you're used to, and a chance for, it's like, there's a reason why things are spectator sports and D&D isn't, and when you can sort of bring that into the game, it brings a lot of joy and enthusiasm to it. And so I always love inserting that stuff in if I can. So essentially, there are a lot of ways to, I would say, if you do pit players against each other, make it so it's out of character, a more lighthearted thing, or if it's in character, it's in a place where there's conflict, and it isn't about this competition, because competitions where there's a loser and it's serious often doesn't feel good. And also, you want to know if there's something your party is interested in. I think a one-shot with PvP is a great way to kind of feel this out. Additionally, there are a ton of options for giving your players a chance to try out the other team and be antagonistic in a way that's less harmful, and then and sort of allows more involvement and brings more fun all around, which is what you want, and because it brings more inclusion. And so I do think there is potential for more antagonistic and competitive methods of combat and situations that can be beneficial, but straight PvP, knowing your party, I would most likely avoid it. I hope this video was helpful. PvP is always a sort of tricky topic to talk about. It's something that sounds very appealing in practice, but there is some risks. This is Sean from Dodeca Dungeon, signing off.